Case 1. Leah Croucher. Leah Croucher was born on August the 14th, 1999 and lived in Milton Keynes, UK with her parents John and Claire. She was especially close to her older half-siblings Hayden and Jade. Her family described Leah as bright, confident and loving, a young woman who preferred the comfort of a good book or a night in watching a movie and TV rather than going out. She was also active on social media, particularly Snapchat, where she kept in touch with her friends. Leah shared a special bond with her brother Hayden. Together, they practiced taekwondo taught by their father, who was an instructor. Leah excelled in the sport, even competing internationally, and the discipline became something that connected the family deeply. On Thursday, February the 14th, 2019, Leah finished her day at the finance company where she worked and began her usual walk home. At 5:45 p.m, for reasons still unknown, the location settings on her phone were switched off, something she had never done before. Leah arrived home around 6 p.m, changed clothes and told her mother she was heading out to visit friends, which was unusual for her. She returned at 7:15 p.m. and by all accounts appeared calm and her evening seemed normal. At 10 p.m, Leah said goodnight to her parents and went to bed. It would be the last time they ever saw her. Friday, February the 15th, 2019. Leah woke around 7:30 a.m. and got ready for work. With her parents already gone for the day, she left her home at Quantock Crescent at around 8 a.m. for her usual 2-mile walk. She wore a black coat, black skinny jeans, black Converse high tops and a grey taekwondo hoodie. Carrying her Samsung phone and a black rucksack, she was spotted on CCTV at 8:07 a.m. near Lee Hill and again at 8:15 a.m. on Buzzcott Lane in Thurston. She appeared to be heading towards Locksbeer Drive and Shaffer Way. This would be the last confirmed sighting of Leah. Her mother had often urged her to vary her route for safety, but Leah almost always followed the same familiar path from Thurston through Shenley Lodge and into Knoll Hill. At 8:34 a.m, her phone was switched off. She never arrived at work, and when she failed to return home later, concern quickly grew. By 5 p.m, her workplace contacted her parents to report that she had never shown up. Calls to her phone went unanswered. Her bedroom looked normal, her bed neatly made, her belongings in place, but Leah was gone. That evening, Claire Croucher reported her daughter missing, while John went out searching.
It's been 2 weeks since Leah Croucher went missing while walking to work. Leah was last seen in Buzzcott Lane in Thurston, where she was captured on CCTV at about 8:15 in the morning on Friday the 15th of February. I can confirm that 2 weeks on, we still have no further confirmed sightings of Leah since that time. Leah's usual route to work would be via Buzzcott Lane and then into Faraday Drive, using the redways to travel north to Kelvin Drive in Knoll Hill. We know that this is the route that Leah took to work on the 13th and the 14th of February. However, extensive CCTV work has shown us that she did not arrive in Faraday Drive on the morning she went missing. Our appeal today is to urge anybody in the area between Buzzcott Lane and Faraday Drive after 8:15 in the morning on Friday the 15th of February, or who has dash cam footage or CCTV from that day, please come forward and speak to us. Today we are releasing new footage of Leah taken from the 14th of February. This shows her, as she did most days, walking to her place of work. We hope this will help jog somebody's memory.
Local news carried her story, and witnesses came forward claiming to have seen a girl matching her description walking near Thurston Lake between 9:30 and 11:15 a.m. Specialist search teams, dogs, helicopters and dive units scoured the lakes near her route. Nothing was found. Appeals were made at Milton Keynes Dons football stadium and a social media campaign spread awareness. Donations poured in to fund a reward, but still no trace of Leah emerged. CCTV that had always caught her on Faraday Drive failed to capture her that morning. Had she taken a different route? Were the witness sightings real or mistaken identity? Meanwhile, Leah's brother Hayden was struggling deeply with her disappearance. He was accused of threatening a man rumoured to have been involved with Leah, a work colleague 9 years older, reportedly engaged to someone else at the time. Hayden believed this man had groomed his sister. Police investigated thoroughly, but found no evidence of a relationship, and the man was ruled out as a suspect. Hayden was given a restraining order, but his grief grew heavier. 7 months after Leah vanished, her case featured on the BBC's Crime Watch. A new witness reported seeing a grey hoodie floating in Blue Lagoon Lake back in February. A 10-day search followed, but yet again, no answers. Then, in November 2019, tragedy struck the Croucher family once more. Overwhelmed by despair, Hayden took his own life at just 24 years old. Despite vigils, fundraisers, and the reward being raised to £20,000 in 2021, no lead surfaced. On the 3rd anniversary of Leah's disappearance, police released a photo taken by a passerby of someone dressed in black near Thurston Lake on the morning Leah went missing. It seemed to validate witness accounts of a distressed woman seen in the same area, but police later confirmed the figure in the photo was not Leah. Later that year, another witness came forward. She claimed that on the morning of February the 15th, she saw a black car with a man in his 30s or 40s driving, and a passenger with their feet up on the dashboard. Feet she described as too small for an adult man's shoes, likely female. She recalled the driver twisting violently, as if to push someone down. But she couldn't see the license plates, and her report, like so many, led nowhere. Then, after 3 years, 8 months, and 3 days, everything changed.
On Monday, at about 6:30 p.m, police were contacted with information about a property in Lockspear Drive, Thurston, Milton Keynes. We promptly attended, and a number of items were located inside the property. These items included a rucksack and personal possessions belonging to Leah, who was reported missing on the 15th of February 2019. Sadly, human remains were also found inside the property, close to the rucksack. As a result of our findings, Thames Valley Police changed its investigation from a missing person investigation to a murder investigation. As I stated, the investigation is moving at pace, and as such, I can share with you some further updates today. But at the very outset of our investigation into the disappearance of Leah, we assigned this case our most experienced and capable team of detectives, led by a senior investigating officer. This attests to our determination to find Leah. Thereafter, we immediately and thoroughly followed every reasonable line of inquiry. We committed hundreds of officers and staff to the search for Leah, reviewing 1,200 hours of CCTV, conducting more than 4,000 house-to-house inquiries, searching lakes, open land and woodland. We have sustained and significant media appeals and offered several public rewards for information. But sadly, the call from the member of the public that we received on Monday this week was the first occasion that information was made available to enable the investigation team to provide any link between that address in Lockspear Drive and Leah. Prior to this, in the course of visiting those 4,000 properties, I can confirm that number 2 Lockspear Drive was visited on at least 2 occasions. However, there was no response at the house. Therefore, we dropped a leaflet through the letterbox requesting a callback if the occupants of the property had any information. In addition to the house-to-house inquiries, we also visited the property to scope what CCTV may be available in the area. Since we were alerted to this property on Monday evening, we have established that the property is owned by someone who lives overseas and rarely visits the United Kingdom. It is now known that the owner was not in the UK at the time Leah was reported missing, and the house was unoccupied when police attended on these inquiries. Today, I am able to confirm that we have nominated a suspect in this case. His name is Neil Maxwell. However, Maxwell was found dead on the 20th of April 2019, having taken his own life. It is unusual to name a suspect, but we have also learned this week that during the time when Leah went missing, and whilst the owner of the property was not in the UK, Maxwell was the only person to have keys to that property.
Maxwell was a convicted sex offender, violent, dangerous, known to the police. When Leah disappeared, he was already wanted for another assault. He moved from place to place, using burner phones, rental cars, but he wasn't invisible. Employers warned police. An ex-girlfriend said it outright, "If you don't stop him, he will kill." Those words were ignored. When Leah went missing, police searched the house at Lockspear Drive, not once, but twice. And twice they walked away. They never went back. They never searched properly. And all the while, Leah was inside. For 3.5 years, her family begged for answers. But the truth sat hidden in that attic. By the time detectives linked Neil Maxwell to Leah, it was too late. He had killed himself in April 2019, just weeks after Leah vanished. The only man who knew what really happened was gone, and with him, justice. In June 2024, an inquest confirmed the family's worst fear. Leah had been abducted and murdered, most likely on the very day she disappeared. The coroner condemned the failures. A violent predator, supposedly monitored, was left free to kill. Warnings ignored, oversight collapsed, and the decision not to return to that house, a devastating mistake that changed everything. For Leah's parents, no official words could ease the pain. She was only 19, her whole life ahead of her. At the house, where she was finally found, they left a note. "Our darling Leah, our darkest fears have come true. We only need to be apart a little longer now. We have missed you for so long already. The future looks so bleak now that we know we will never see your smile or hear your laugh again. We will cherish your memories forever. We love you, Mum and Dad." Case 2. Claudia Lawrence. Born in 1974 to Peter and Joan Lawrence, Claudia grew up in Yorkshire, the daughter of a respected solicitor. She was close to her family, cheerful, sociable, and discovered an early passion for cooking. After qualifying as a chef, she worked in restaurants before moving into catering at the University of York. By 2007, Claudia had her own cottage just a few miles from work. To outsiders, her life looked stable and happy. But beneath the surface, Claudia kept parts of her life hidden. She was known to have short-term relationships, though she rarely spoke of them. On Wednesday, March the 18th, 2009, Claudia started her day like any other. She arrived at Goodrich College at 6 a.m, clocked in, and worked her usual shift as a chef. By early afternoon, she was done. CCTV captured her leaving work. Just minutes later, she was seen stopping at a postbox, dropping something inside before continuing her journey. A neighbour then spotted her in person, and a colleague offered her a lift, dropping her right outside her door. These were the final confirmed moments of Claudia's life on camera. That evening, she phoned friends and family. Her mother recalled her being chatty, relaxed, and making plans for Mother's Day. With her car in for repairs, Claudia explained she needed an early night. She'd be walking to work the next morning. but she never arrived. At 6 a.m. on March 19th, her absence was immediately noticed. Claudia was always on time. Her phone rang out, going to voicemail. Susie called again, still no answer. She phoned Goodrich College and learned Claudia had not been seen since Wednesday. Terrified, she contacted Claudia's father. Together, they went to her home. Inside, nothing seemed out of place. Her bed was neatly made. Breakfast dishes were stacked in the sink. Hair dye bottles and gloves were left in the bathroom. But her phone, her work rucksack, and her hair straighteners were gone. It looked as if she had left for work as normal, but never made it there. Forensic teams scoured her home. No signs of forced entry, no blood, no struggle, no attempt to clean up. Experts concluded if something happened to Claudia, it happened outside the house, somewhere on her way to work. But if she did leave, why wasn't she on CCTV? Police reviewed every camera along her route. Nothing. Not a single image. It was as if Claudia vanished into thin air. As hours turned into days, the investigation shifted. This was no longer a missing person case. Something darker had happened. And then, the witnesses came forward. The first described a man and a woman on Melrose Gate Bridge at 5:35 a.m. Thursday morning, exactly the time Claudia should have been walking to work. The man was slim, in a dark hoodie and combat trousers, smoking with his left hand. The woman had mousy brown hair and wore a waist-length blue jacket. They stood near an electricity substation, deep in conversation. Was it Claudia? If she left home as planned, the timing fit perfectly. The second sighting was just as disturbing. Around 6:10 a.m, a witness reported seeing a man arguing with a woman on a grass slope beside a parked car on University Way. The passenger door was open. The man wore a hoodie pulled tightly over his head. The woman appeared smaller, vulnerable. Could this have been Claudia too? Two separate witnesses, the same description of the man and the same time frame. Mistaken identity is possible, but is it likely? Yet, when police reviewed CCTV for Melrose Gate shops, the cameras showed 3 people walking past that morning. To this day, investigators have never confirmed if any of them was Claudia. If these sightings were real, it suggested something chilling. Claudia may have set out for work and met someone who stopped her in her tracks. Police dug into her finances. No suspicious activity, no withdrawals, no debts, nothing to suggest she ran away, and nothing to suggest her disappearance was financially motivated. As detectives dug deeper, her hidden relationships became the focus.
Well, it's now 11 weeks since Claudia disappeared. There's been no proof of life. I'm treating this investigation as one of suspected murder.
You see, some people might think they're protecting Claudia and they're protecting Claudia's reputation, but it's far, far more important than that, if indeed we are talking here about murder. I mean, you do want to hear from people who even have suspicions about other people. That would be useful to you at this stage.
Absolutely. I'm not here to judge Claudia's relationships. I'm here to investigate them. I need people to share that information with me.
Had Claudia been the victim of someone she knew? A jealous partner? Or someone with a grudge? CCTV and phone records provided few answers. Her phone was deliberately switched off around midday on March 19th. It had never left the local area. The last text she answered was the night before. The final message she received was from a man in Cyprus, but she never replied. Months passed. Leads came and went. Police expanded their investigation abroad, even to Cyprus, where Claudia had been on holiday and considered work. Nothing. Journalists covering the story were threatened, suggesting someone close to Claudia wanted the truth to be buried.
The man leading the case told me he's convinced some people police have already spoken to are holding back.
Is everybody being honest with you? I don't think people are being completely honest with us, and those particularly closest to Claudia and associates, I still think there's information they are not divulging at the minute. For whatever reason, I would encourage them to come forward.
Years later, in 2013, investigators returned with advanced forensic tools. They recovered new fingerprints and a man's DNA on a cigarette butt inside Claudia's car. A possible breakthrough, but once again, the trail went cold. CCTV showed suspicious vehicles outside her home the night before she disappeared, particularly a white van captured on a bus camera as the bus passed. No more information has been released concerning the vehicle. Was it connected in any way or not at all? Several men known to Claudia were arrested, but all were released without charge. Detectives remained certain someone was holding back information. On the 6th anniversary of her disappearance, chilling CCTV emerged. A figure was caught entering the alleyway behind her house. Then reappearing minutes later. The man visibly stops, not wanting to be seen. Hours later, another person paced back and forth at the same spot. Were they connected to Claudia's fate, or just shadows passing through the night? By 2016, police pushed to charge 4 men with her murder, but prosecutors refused, citing lack of evidence. Once again, the case collapsed. Some speculated that notorious killer Christopher Halliwell, convicted of multiple murders, could be linked. His description fit the left-handed smoker. He was rumoured to have hinted at more victims, yet police insist there's no evidence tying him to Claudia, as he was reportedly miles away on the day she disappeared. And while investigators struggled, the criticism grew louder. In the early days, police had treated the case far too lightly. Delayed searches, missing evidence, leads allowed to fade. Claudia's family were left not only without answers, but with the sinking feeling that opportunities to solve the mystery had been lost forever. Through it all, her father Peter fought tirelessly, not only for answers, but for change. His campaign led to Claudia's Law, passed in 2019, giving families of missing people the power to manage their loved ones' affairs after 90 days. Tragically, Peter Lawrence died in 2021, never knowing what became of his daughter. Today, the mystery remains. No body, no conclusive evidence, and no justice. But someone, somewhere, knows what happened. Claudia's mother and friends continue to fight for answers. There are countless theories, but no proof. Police may have their suspicions, yet without evidence, they remain powerless. Many believe this was a conspiracy carried out by people close to home, perhaps even in New York itself. But unless someone breaks their silence, the truth will stay buried. We can only hope the police have exhausted every tool possible, revisiting suspects, re-examining witness accounts, and separating fact from red herrings. The question lingers. Did Claudia really leave her home that morning? Or did she have an unexpected visitor? Have the police withheld CCTV or witness statements that could shed light on what happened? If Claudia did get into a car, it was likely with someone she knew and trusted. If it was a stranger, then surely someone would have seen or heard something on that busy road. Another theory suggests she left with a visitor the night before, planning to be dropped at work in the morning. Could this explain the mysterious white van parked outside her home? Yet, if so, why were there no text messages, no calls, no trace, unless she had another phone the police have never found? Perhaps investigators know more than they can share, protecting the integrity of the case. But the rabbit hole runs deep, and with every passing year the question grows heavier. But at the heart of it all is not just a mystery, but a woman who was loved by her family and friends. That should never be forgotten. Case 3. Grace Millane. Grace Millane was born in Essex, England, in 1996, the youngest of 3 children to parents David and Gillian. She grew up surrounded by love, laughter, and creativity. Her family described her as outgoing, artistic, and full of compassion, the kind of person who lit up every room. After graduating from the University of Lincoln with a degree in advertising and marketing, she decided to travel the world before beginning her career. Before leaving, she chopped off some of her long hair and donated it to the Little Princess Trust, a children's cancer charity, the sort of thoughtful gesture that defined her. In October 2018, she left home with her backpack, camera, and a year of adventure ahead. She backpacked across South America, visiting Peru, and meeting fellow travelers along the way. Always meeting new friends, sharing new stories, and having great experiences. Her family received constant photos and messages along the way. She was never out of touch. She was having the time of her life. She then arrived in New Zealand. It would be the final leg of her journey. On December the 1st, 2018, Grace checked into a hostel in central Auckland. That evening, she put on a black dress and white trainers and walked out the door to meet someone she'd matched with on Tinder. At first, she wasn't sure about going, but after more chatting, she agreed. She left to meet her date, a 26-year-old oil manager who lived in a hotel. The pair met at Sky City, a buzzing entertainment complex of bars and restaurants. CCTV caught them laughing, smiling, ordering drinks. Grace even texted a friend, "I clicked with him so well." It all seemed so normal, at least on the surface. Later that night, the two moved to another bar, the Bluestone Room. They talked, kissed, and looked like any other young couple enjoying each other's company. The two were seen leaving the bar together, arm in arm, and heading towards a nearby hotel. They took the lift together and went to room 308 on the 3rd floor. This was the last time Grace Millane was ever seen alive again. December the 2nd, 2018. Today was Grace's 22nd birthday. Friends and family sent messages, but none were read. Her phone went silent, straight to voicemail, no reply. Grace's parents knew immediately that something was wrong. She was always in touch, always sharing updates. By the 3rd day, panic set in. Grace never went this long without contact. Her parents reported her missing.
We begin tonight with a public appeal for missing British backpacker Grace Millane. A short time ago, police held a press conference to appeal for sightings of the 22-year-old who has not been seen since 7:15 p.m. on Saturday night.
Police searched her hostel. Everything she owned was still there. Her passport, her suitcase, her clothes. So where was Grace? And where and who was the man she met that night? Detectives quickly traced her last steps through hours of city CCTV. It didn't take long to find the answer. The same man leaving the bar with Grace had commented on her Facebook profile photo the very night she vanished, writing, "Beautiful, very radiant." His name? Jesse Kempson, 26 years old, living at the City Life Hotel. When the police managed to get him in for routine questions, he appeared calm, even helpful.
How did the evening pan out? Yeah, pretty good.
He told them that they'd had a nice night, parted ways around 10 p.m, and that was that. He said he tried to message her the next day, but she had unmatched him on Tinder, so he accepted he would no longer be seeing her and moved on. But as he spoke, officers were already reviewing the hotel footage. And very quickly, the footage was not matching with his version of events. Grace and Jesse entering the lift together. The doors close. She leaves the lift with him, but never returns. So why was Jesse pretending they'd parted ways? He clearly was lying. Detectives looked into Jesse some more. Jesse was born in Wellington and had moved around a lot as a child after his parents split up. He had been mainly raised by his grandparents and didn't have much to do with the rest of his family. Many in his family thought he was a compulsive liar. He'd make up stories claiming he was suffering from cancer, even lying to employers, landlords and partners. When his lies were found out, he would often be evicted or lose his job. A previous landlord said that he lied about being a pro softball player who played for New Zealand's national team, the Black Sox. Jesse said he was waiting on contract money and he would pay the rent when he received it. After weeks of waiting, the landlord contacted the club and found out it was all a lie. They'd never even heard of him. In the current hotel, City Life, he had told them he was a highly paid Woolworths manager. But the truth was, he was unemployed and on benefits. He had only recently been fired from his telesales job for lying again. This happened on the actual day he met Grace. He was never an oil manager. Over the next few days, detectives followed every move that Jesse made after that night. What they found was chilling. He'd gone shopping for a large suitcase and cleaning supplies. He rented a red Toyota Corolla. He even met another Tinder date. She later said to the police he was casually chatting about burying bodies and police friends. She felt so unsettled by him, she refused to get into his car and made her own way home and did not talk to him again. Jesse later hired a carpet cleaner machine and took it to his room in the hotel. He told staff he wanted to clean some red wine stains he had made. Later that evening, Jesse used a trolley to transport 2 suitcases. He then loaded them into the rental car and left the parking lot. The next day he was caught on camera buying a shovel. Then sometime later, he went and cleaned the car before returning it to the rental company. On the 5th of December, Jesse visited different areas to throw away items into different bins. Police came to the hotel that day to talk to him. As soon as he saw the police, he turned around and started to walk away. The police saw him, chased him down, and brought him in to answer some questions. When police confronted him again, he insisted nothing had happened, that Grace had left alive. But the evidence was overwhelming. Police searched his room. Grace's father arrived in Auckland on December the 7th and gave a press conference, pleading for help to find his daughter.
Thank you for coming today. As you know, Grace has been missing for several days. We last had contact with her on Saturday the 1st of December. And as a family, we've been extremely concerned for her welfare. Grace is a lovely, outgoing, fun-loving, family-orientated daughter.
They arrested Jesse on December the 8th. His story had now changed.
I don't know, I was all over the place.
You come out of the shower, the light's been on in the shower, you put a towel around you, you've turned the light off, and then you've returned to your bed and you've gone to sleep in your bed. And at that point, when you exit the shower, you don't look around, but your assumption from the silence.
I thought that she had gone.
He claimed it was all an accident, and things had gone too far. He said he panicked, not knowing what to do. He put her body in a suitcase and drove out to bury her. Forensic evidence was overwhelming. Jesse's crude attempt to clean up made no difference. Grace's blood was all over the hotel room floor. With the information he had given, hours later, police found a shallow grave off Scenic Drive, west of Auckland. Inside the grave was a suitcase, and inside the suitcase was the body of Grace Millane.
The area was identified late last night as a location of interest as a result of our investigative work. I can now advise that a short time ago we located a body which we believe to be Grace.
The news shocked the nation. Many people laid flowers and held vigils. The New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern publicly apologised to Grace's parents.
On behalf of New Zealand, I want to apologise to Grace's family. Your daughter should have been safe here, and she wasn't, and I'm sorry for that.
Jesse Kempson was charged with the murder of Grace Millane. On December the 10th, Jesse appeared in court in Auckland. After an autopsy, the pathologist stated that Grace had been strangled and had bruising on her chest and arms, likely from being pinned down.
There was an area of significant bruising, and it was on the left side of the neck, and it basically extended from the jaw down. If you look at your own neck, there's a very broad band of muscle which comes down the side of your neck called sternomastoid muscle. So the bruising was to the midline of that, or just over more towards the right. There has been sufficient pressure in that place for a sufficient period of time and for sufficient force for that bruising to occur.
After killing her, Jesse looked up locations on his phone, including the one he would eventually dispose Grace's body. He then looked at pornography and, sickeningly, took intimate photos of Grace's lifeless body. And then he went on another date. Was this really panic? Or was it something much darker? Grace's funeral was held at Brentwood Cathedral, with hundreds in attendance. In November 2019, Jesse Kempson went on trial for murder. His lawyers claimed Grace's death was a tragic accident, but prosecutors argued it was deliberate, sustained, and cruel. After just 5 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty. Kempson was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum of 17 years.
The verdict of murder today will be welcomed by every member of the Millane family and friends of Grace. It will not reduce the pain, the suffering that we've had to endure for over the past year.
In the months that followed, 2 other women came forward. Both said Jesse Kempson had abused or assaulted them before Grace's murder. He was found guilty again, twice, adding 11 years to his sentence. For Grace's family, justice was cold comfort. Her father, David Millane, said, "The terror and pain she must have experienced at your hands. As a mother and father, it will haunt us forever." A year later, David passed away after a battle with cancer, never recovering from losing his daughter. Out of grief, Grace's family built something meaningful. They launched a Love Grace campaign, collecting handbags filled with the essentials for women escaping abuse. They also raised thousands for the White Ribbon campaign, working to end male violence against women. Case 4. Becky Watts. Becky was just 16. She was shy, caring, and adored by her family. Her early years had been difficult. Following her parents splitting up, she lived with her mum, Tanya. However, she was then placed in local authority care for a short while due to neglect. But soon both her and her brother Dan moved to live with their father, Darren. She loved music, fashion, and being with her friends. But Becky also struggled with insecurity and self-confidence, something her family worked hard to support her through. Her dad, Darren, would later get into a relationship with Angie, who then became Becky's stepmom. Angie had a son called Nathan. When Darren and Angie eventually married in 2013, Nathan was the best man and Becky was the bridesmaid, along with Nathan's long-term girlfriend, Shauna. Despite her shyness, Becky had big dreams for the future. That's why, when she failed to show up one February morning, alarm bells rang almost immediately. On February 19th, it seemed like an ordinary day, but by the next morning, Becky's bedroom was empty. When Becky didn't respond to messages or show up later that day, her family panicked and called the police. At first, detectives treated it as a missing persons case, but the more they looked into it, the more concerned they became. Her social media had not been used and none of her friends had been contacted. Soon the news spread and concerns heightened.
It's 5 days since Becky left her home in the St George area of Bristol with just her laptop and a phone. Police say nobody has heard from her since then.
Friends, family and the people that are really dearest to her, that I would expect her to have regular contact with, at least one of those people, we've had no contact with her, so we really are very concerned about her well-being.
Police have searched open ground close to Becky's home, but say there have been no significant finds or breakthroughs. 5 days on, detectives and the schoolgirl's family are mystified by her sudden disappearance.
On Wednesday, February the 25th, police conducted a search at Becky's home, as well as woodland and surrounding areas. But still, she wasn't found. Detectives then interviewed everyone close to Becky.
No one saw her go, but just heard the door go, and the assumption that Becky had left the house.
It soon emerged the last people to have seen Becky was her stepbrother Nathan and his girlfriend Shauna. Police asked them to come in to talk.
I think we got there about 11ish. The door was locked, so obviously we used a key from underneath the recycling bin. Got in. Heard music upstairs. Assumed Becky had been in then. I went into the kitchen to get a cigarette and went to go outside to have a cigarette. I heard the door slam, front door. So I would have been at the sink. So a distance, a reasonable amount, I'd say.
Okay.
So I heard stomping down the stairs. I assumed, she was in a bit of one of her tantrums.
Yeah.
No, we've been talking for 2 hours. It's quite a long time.
My back's killing.
I know.
Nathan gave an identical account. Although their accounts matched perfectly, there were some red flags. Shauna kept almost laughing throughout her interview, and Nathan was emotionless. Also, their stories were too in sync with each other, almost as if it was rehearsed. Forensics were deployed to Becky's house to conduct a thorough search. Forensics searched Becky's room with painstaking detail. On the door frame and skirting boards, they found tiny spots of blood. They weren't large enough to be accidental. A fingerprint was also recovered. It was not Becky's. Nathan and Shauna were asked to come back in for more interviews, as things weren't adding up.
Well, the weekend that Becky, after
Becky went missing, I think if I help you, so I think it was on Monday actually that you spoke to police officers, detectives.
Which would have been outside my mum's house.
That's right.
So I would have went to my mum's that day.
So that was on Monday.
I think I went over on Tuesday.
Where did you stay on Monday night?
It would have been at my house, but we didn't leave until about midnight, to be honest.
You left about midnight
Yeah,
Monday.
most nights we did. Tuesday we went over again.
Yeah.
Again, probably would have left about midnight.
Yeah.
Wednesday, I think we stayed in my house. We might have gone over again Wednesday, actually, sorry, I think. Thursday, which was yesterday.
That was yesterday.
Yeah, we had the interview, and then obviously we've gone over again today.
Yeah,
because Wednesday we started watching a film, or two films, that my mum fell asleep and we didn't leave until like 2 o'clock in the morning or something.
On Wednesday.
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
Thursday, yeah.
And then Thursday we obviously had the interview, and then today.
Tests eventually came back from forensics. The fingerprint found in the blood on the frame of Becky's door was Nathan's. And the blood? This was a 100% match to Becky. On February the 28th, Nathan Matthews and Shauna Hall were arrested on suspicion of kidnapping Becky. The community was stunned. Could her stepbrother really be involved? Warning signs were there. Nathan and Becky did not get on. Nathan was 10 years older than Becky and had never liked the fact his mother and Becky's father Darren were together. He and Darren had a difficult relationship. Although Becky's brother Dan got on with Nathan, Nathan didn't have much time for Becky. Becky at one stage had an eating disorder, which would make her faint and unwell. Nathan accused her of attention seeking and showed her no sympathy. Once, Nathan came to the house with some young girls in his car who were underage. Darren would not let them in and told Nathan to leave. When Nathan was 21, he came round with his new girlfriend, Shauna Hall. He told everyone she was 19, but she was actually 15. Darren figured this out and told him to leave. This added to Nathan's resentment of him. Darren did not want his children taken back into care, so would not allow anything that could jeopardise the hard work he had done in keeping them safe. Darren later said he did not like Shauna either, as there was something odd about her. Nathan and Shauna were questioned again, this time under caution. As the news broke, detectives searched Nathan and Shauna's home, and what they found painted a disturbing picture. The house was extremely untidy and cluttered. Every room was a mess. However, the bathtub stood out. It was spotless. It had obviously been cleaned repeatedly. Detectives wondered why. Nathan and Shauna's home was searched for days, as both Nathan and Shauna remained in custody. It was a painstaking search, due to all the clutter and mess. But then, police had a breakthrough. 2 receipts for the home DIY store B&Q were found, and on them, evidence of a purchase that sent chills down detectives' spines. It showed that on the Friday Becky had gone missing, an electric circular saw, gloves, goggles, and a mask had been bought. CCTV from the store showed it was Nathan who made the purchase. Both Nathan Matthews and Shauna Hall were rearrested for the suspicion of the murder of Becky Watts. It was now a murder investigation. Becky's family were devastated. News spread across the community. Everyone was in shock. More pressure was put on both Nathan and Shauna in their interviews. Police needed to know where Becky's body was. Finally, Nathan cracked. A pre-prepared statement was read out to the police from his lawyer. This is what he said. I, Nathan Charles Matthews, accept I'm responsible for the death of Rebecca Watts. On the 19th of February 2015, I attended Crown Hill, St George, Bristol, with my girlfriend Shauna Hall. In my care, I had a large bag, a stun device, handcuffs, tape and mask. I had developed an idea to scare Rebecca by kidnapping her. I wanted to scare her and teach her a lesson. I believed that she was selfish and her behaviour towards my mother was a risk to her health. A few minutes after arriving, Shauna said she wanted a cigarette and went into the garden. I went to the boot of my car, took out a bag that contained the items, then went upstairs to the landing before knocking on Rebecca's door. She replied, "What?" or "Hello?" And I said, "Can I see you a minute?" I cannot be sure which order things happened, but I used the items I had to subdue Rebecca. During the short struggle, my mask slipped, and Rebecca was able to see my face. This caused me to panic, and I strangled her while she was partially in the bag. Police were stunned. After he killed Becky, he dismembered her in the bathtub of his home. This was why it was so spotless. He had cleaned it after he did the heinous act. Nathan now revealed where Becky's body was disposed.
As a result of new information received late last night, we attended at a house at Barton Court in the Barton Hill area of Bristol. The information suggested that Becky's body had been cut up, and a search at the new location resulted in the discovery of body parts. Although formal identification procedures have not yet been completed, we have made Becky's family aware of this discovery. As a result of this latest development, a further 3 men and 2 women have been arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. They remain in police custody at this time, as do the man and woman arrested on suspicion of Becky's murder. This is devastating news for Becky's family and friends, and our thoughts are with them.
Becky's body had been wrapped in plastic bags and placed in suitcases. Cat litter and salt crystals had been used to hide the smell. The suitcases were then put into the shed of the property. Following tests, it evidenced Becky had fought hard in her final moments. She had over 40 injuries to her body and had likely died from asphyxiation and stab wounds. Now police knew Nathan was guilty. What role did Shauna play? Police investigated further and managed to gather the timeline of the horrific events. On Thursday, February the 19th, at 8:30 a.m, Becky returned home after staying out with a friend. At 10:50 a.m, Nathan and Shauna get to Becky's home. They know Angie and Darren would be out. Nathan parks his car on the drive with the boot facing the front door. At 11:03 a.m, Becky sends her last ever text to her boyfriend saying she is listening to music. Moments after this, Nathan attacks Becky. Her body is then put into the boot of his car. At 12:45 p.m, Darren and Angie get back home. Nathan and Shauna are there, acting normal, while Becky's dead body is only a few feet away, outside in the boot of the car. At 5 p.m, Becky's boyfriend gets to the house. Concerned he hasn't heard from her, Shauna answers the door and pretends to look in her room, whilst Becky's boyfriend stays downstairs, speaking to Darren and Angie. At 7 p.m, Nathan and Shauna drive home. They take Becky's body inside, and she is dismembered in the bathtub. They then order a takeaway. Friday, February the 20th, at 12:20 p.m, Nathan buys 2 bottles of drain cleaner. He then goes to B&Q and buys the goggles, mask, gloves and circular saw. At 3:10 p.m, Shauna texts him saying, "What time you finish work? Lol." At 4 p.m, Darren calls the police to report Becky missing. At 6:35 p.m, the police arrive at Becky's home and speak with Darren and Angie. Nathan and Shauna are now there. They both say they heard her leave the house the morning before. By 9 p.m, they both return to their house and watch a YouTube video called "Do You Want to Hide a Body?" On February the 21st, they both visit a store and buy bin bags, gloves, rubble sacks, cling film and bleach. The next day, they buy a sponge, tape, more cling film and rubble sacks. Shauna denied involvement, yet texts, recordings and CCTV revealed she was fully complicit, helping cover up the crime. Shauna was eventually charged with the murder of Becky Watts, along with Nathan. Becky's funeral was held on the 17th of April at St Ambrose Church. Hundreds of people paid respects as her coffin was transported with a horse-drawn carriage. On October the 6th, 2015, the trial of Nathan Matthews and Shauna Hoare began at Bristol Crown Court. The trial was horrific, as the details were laid bare. Shauna claimed she was innocent throughout, but the evidence was damning. Eventually, the jury reached a verdict. Shauna Hoare was found guilty of the kidnap and manslaughter of Becky Watts. Nathan Matthews was found guilty of the kidnap and murder of Becky Watts. Nathan was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 33 years. Shauna received 17 years for manslaughter and perverting the court of justice. Case 5. Anni Dewani. Anni Hindocha, 28, born in Sweden to Ugandan Indian parents Vinod and Nilam. Her family were originally from Uganda, but like thousands of others of Asian descent, they were forced to flee in the early 1970s, when dictator Idi Amin gave them 90 days to leave the country. They settled in Sweden, where her father built a successful business and gave his family stability, comfort, and opportunity. Annie was intelligent, warm, magnetic. Her father admitted he spoiled her. Her cousins said she was the glue of the family, charismatic, funny, and the emotional centre of them all. After university, she moved to Stockholm and landed a marketing job at Ericsson, one of Sweden's biggest and most prestigious tech companies. Life was on track. She dreamed of love, marriage, a family of her own, and she would find all of that, or so she thought. During one of her London trips, she met 30-year-old Anni Dewani, a well-educated, wealthy British businessman from Bristol, a millionaire by 30, working in his family's luxury care home business. He was polished, articulate, financially secure. Some saw him as flashy and image-conscious. Others described him as charming, generous, and deeply caring. Their first meeting was arranged by family, the classic coffee shop introduction. Annie wasn't convinced, but after their second date, something changed. She told her family, there's something about him, something different. They began a long-distance relationship, Stockholm to London, weekend flights, expensive dinners, long emotional calls late into the night. But it wasn't smooth. They were both strong-willed, both intense. At one point, she ended it, but they reconciled, and this time, she was all in. She left her job and moved to Luton to be closer to him. She believed this was the real beginning. Their families met. The Dewanis, wealthy, respected, welcomed her with warmth. Annie later told her father that Strian believed in no sex before marriage, something Vinod admired. Tradition, commitment, restraint. It reassured him. Soon after, wedding plans began. By October 2010, under the glowing lights of Mumbai, they married in a lavish 3-day celebration, attended by hundreds. Family said it was like a fairy tale. But one bridesmaid later said something felt off, that Annie looked distant, disconnected, almost like her mind was somewhere else. No one could quite explain it. 3 weeks later, they boarded a plane for their honeymoon. Destination, Cape Town, South Africa. A surprise completely planned by Strian. He booked them into the Cape Grace Hotel, one of the most exclusive, luxurious hotels in the country. This was meant to be the beginning of their life together. Instead, it would be the end. Friday, November the 12th. At Cape Town Airport, instead of using the hotel's luxury chauffeur service, Strian flagged down a local taxi shuttle, a Volkswagen minivan, driven by Zola Tongo. The 20-minute journey took them past glittering waterfront views and city lights until they reached the stunning Cape Grace Hotel. Before getting out, Strian leaned into the driver's window. He asked Tongo to come back tomorrow night. Dinner plans, city tour, a private guide. This small conversation would become very important later. The next day, the couple relaxed at the hotel bar. Cocktails, laughter, taking photos. Everything looked perfect. That evening, Tongo picked them up again. Strian had booked dinner at 96 Winnery Road, one of the most acclaimed restaurants in the region. But on the way, he and Annie changed their minds. They wanted something simpler. Tongo said he knew just the place. He turned off the main highway and dropped them at the Surfside restaurant in Strand, overlooking the ocean. They stayed for less than an hour. At 10:30 p.m, Tongo picked them up. And this is where everything begins to change. According to Strian, Annie insisted on seeing the real South Africa, even the dangerous parts, even the townships. So they drove into Gugulethu, a high crime area where locals say you do not leave your house after dark. Between 2005 and 2010, over 700 people were murdered there. That's one murder every 2.5 days. A South African officer later said, "We wouldn't even drive there in a marked police car." 10:45 p.m, Tongo stops at a quiet intersection. Silence. Then, chaos. 2 armed men run toward the vehicle. They bang on the windows. They point guns. The doors fly open. Carjacking. They kick Tongo out. They get behind the wheel. They drive off with Annie and Strian in the back. Screaming. Panic. Darkness. The attackers suddenly stop the car. They shove only Strian out onto the roadside. He's alive, unharmed. Only Annie remains inside. Why? Strian stumbled through the dark streets of Gugulethu, knocking on doors, dazed, panicked, telling strangers, "My wife has been taken." Police arrived quickly. They found him shaken, but strangely unharmed. No injuries, no blood, his clothing immaculate, his expensive watch still on his wrist. Nothing was taken from him, except his phone. Officers drove him back through the township, retracing the alleged route. They quickly located taxi driver Zola Tongo, who had also reported the hijacking. Together, Strian, Tongo and the police returned to the Cape Grace Hotel. The hotel manager later said something that would stick in the minds of the detectives. Why would a honeymoon couple staying at one of the most glamorous hotels in South Africa choose to go sightseeing in the dead of night in one of the most dangerous townships in the country? Something felt off. Back in the UK, at around 3:30 a.m, Annie's father receives a call from Anni Dewani, Strian's brother in Bristol. They've been hijacked. Annie has been kidnapped. Vinod didn't panic. He believed this was a ransom situation. Money could fix this. Until his phone rang again. This time, it was Strian, sobbing. "I'm so sorry. I couldn't protect her." Vinod booked the first flight to Cape Town. At 8 a.m. the next morning, a grey Vauxhall minivan was discovered abandoned in Khayelitsha, just miles from Gugulethu. Inside, on the back seat, lay the body of Anni Dewani. She had been shot once, at point-blank range, through the neck. She bled to death. No sexual assault, no prolonged struggle. Her expensive watch still on her wrist, her designer clothing untouched. She wasn't robbed, but she was dead. On his way to South Africa, Vinod received the call. She's gone. He said he sat on the plane for 11 hours, silent, staring at nothing. When he arrived, he met Strian at the Cape Grace Hotel. Everyone was numb. Police were already questioning everything. One detective said, Tongo knew that area well. He would have known the danger, and he would have known who the hijackers were. Why take honeymoon tourists directly into Gugulethu at night? It makes no sense. And another question, why did hijackers kill just the wife, but leave the husband and the driver completely unharmed? They let both men walk free. Neither man had any valuables taken. Annie, the only person attacked, was also the only person left behind. Something wasn't adding up. Still, the case moved fast. Authorities threw major resources at it. Media pressure, public outrage, international interest. Fingerprints in the taxi led them to Golul Mangeni, a local man with a criminal record. He was arrested in his home, where police found a phone hidden under his mattress. He claimed the phone belonged to Zolo Tongo. Mangeni confessed immediately. He named a second man, 26-year-old Zwamadola Kwabe. Kwabe was arrested 2 days later. By this time, Streen had already flown back to the UK. During questioning, Kwabe introduced a third name, Monde Malombo, a hotel receptionist. Then came the bombshell. Zola Tongo, the taxi driver, made a deal. Hidden under a white sheet, he was escorted into Wimberg Magistrates Court. He had agreed to testify. His claim was explosive. This was not a random hijacking. This was not a robbery gone wrong. This was a contract killing. Planned, paid for, organised. And the mastermind? Anni's husband, Anni Dewani. Tongo claimed Streen approached him at the airport before Anni even set foot in Cape Town. Police checked CCTV, and there it was, Streen speaking privately with Tongo for nearly 10 minutes inside the taxi. Anni nowhere in sight. According to Tongo, Streen offered 15,000 rand, less than £1,000, to arrange the murder of his wife. He said he wasn't the killer, but he knew the men who could do it. Tongo claimed he later met hotel receptionist Monde Malombo. Monde contacted Kwabe and Menengi. The plan was then set in motion. Police checked phone records. Monde was heard on recorded calls saying, "It must happen today." Tongo claimed he met Streen just before noon on the day of the murder to exchange money, converting British pounds into South African rand. Streen allegedly said he wanted it done that night. Later, outside the Surfside restaurant, Tongo said Streen asked, "Is everything ready?" Tongo said yes, and as they drove into Guguletu, Streen and Tongo exchanged several text messages. Police later confirmed, yes, messages were exchanged. Yes, there were multiple calls. Streen and Tongo communicated that night, but Streen's phone was never recovered. So what those messages actually said may never be known. It became a media storm. Vinod and Nilam were flown into meetings, heartbroken, confused. Did they want the man who drove their daughter to her death to walk free years early? It didn't feel right, but it might mean answers. And so, through tears, they agreed. They said, "We don't care who gets punished. We just want to know what happened to our daughter." From that moment, the story only got stranger. Anni Dewani's family denied the claims. They said the accusations were insulting, absurd, impossible. His legal team, some of the most expensive lawyers in South Africa, said, "It makes no sense. You're suggesting the millionaire arranged a hit with the first taxi driver he met at the airport." They said there was no physical evidence, no money trail, no messages, no proof. They called it a media-fueled fantasy. But based on Tongo's testimony, all four men now pointed directly at Anni Dewani. Zola Tongo, sentenced to 18 years. Zwamadola Kwabe, 25 years. Golu Mengeni, life. And Monde Malombo walked free, full immunity in exchange for testifying against Streen. Monde said, "Mr. Dewani is lying. He knows everything, from the beginning to the end."
It is difficult to imagine the absolute terror and horror that she must have endured when she stared down the barrel of the gun. Although from a relatively poor background, did not commit this offence due to poverty or his dire socio-economic circumstances. This crime was perpetrated out of pure greed.
The full picture will only emerge when Streen comes down to Cape Town.
Anni Dewani was soon arrested in Bristol, suspected of orchestrating his wife's murder. South African authorities immediately filed to extradite him, but despite multiple confessions pointing to him, there was still no clear motive. And then the tabloid stepped in. The Sun published a sudden allegation. Anonymous emails claimed Streen was living a secret double life, that he was gay, and had been secretly booking a male escort named Leopold Laser, known professionally as the German Master. Laser told reporters that Streen had booked him several times, and during one meeting, Streen allegedly confessed that he was trapped in a marriage he didn't want. Streen and his family said it was absurd, offensive, and completely untrue. They said he was deeply in love with Annie and grieving just like any husband would. But detectives had questions. What if Annie had discovered this during the honeymoon? Could that secret have sparked something darker? Even Annie's father, Vinod, who had passionately defended Streen in the beginning, began to feel uneasy. There were too many versions, he later said, too many things that didn't sit right. He wasn't accusing Streen, but he couldn't ignore the inconsistencies. One stark example, Streen initially told police that all of Annie's jewellery, including her engagement ring, had been taken by the hijackers. But later, he phoned an investigator and said, "Check the seam in the backseat of the car." There, still intact, was the $25,000 engagement ring. When asked why he hadn't mentioned it earlier, Streen said he had been confused and in shock. It didn't help that the night before Annie's funeral, Streen hosted a pizza party at the hotel. Vinod called it inappropriate, disrespectful, and deeply painful. Annie's family also recalled that Streen reacted angrily when they began preparing her body for burial, according to tradition. They said he was agitated, rough, and even threw aside letters and flowers the family had placed with her. He later apologised. As the media attention intensified, Streen's mental health began to decline sharply. Diagnosed with severe depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, he was eventually admitted to the Priory Hospital in Bristol under medical supervision. A grieving husband or a man under pressure? And the biggest question of all, was this behaviour the breakdown of an innocent man or the unravelling of a guilty one? Streen later confirmed he was bisexual, but firmly denied ever wanting to harm Annie. Her family said it made no difference, only that he should have been honest. In 2014, after years of legal battles, Anni Dewani was finally extradited to South Africa.
This is the moment that Anni Dewani, the millionaire businessman based in Bristol, began his involuntary acquaintance with South African justice, 4 years after being accused of plotting the murder of his newlywed 28-year-old wife Annie on their honeymoon in Cape Town. Anni pleaded not guilty to the 5 charges against him, but he also surprised the court. Through his lawyer, he went on to say that he was bisexual, that he'd had encounters with male prostitutes, and he had abnormally low hormone levels, which meant it was unlikely that he could ever have children. The prosecution is expected to argue that the murder was linked to a sham marriage meant to hide Mr. Dewani's true sexual identity. In his defence statement, Anni Dewani admitted their relationship was turbulent. An email from Anni to Anni Dewani, written before their wedding, was read out in court.
If you really think being with me is not going to make you happy, then this is not right for you. I really hope that is not what you are saying, but I don't want to feel like I have forced you into something.
During the trial, a list of digital emissions were revealed. Phone logs showed that during the honeymoon, and even hours after Annie's body was found, Streen was searching gay dating sites and explicit content. The prosecution argued that this wasn't about his sexuality, but about his alleged desperation to escape a marriage he no longer wanted. In court, footage was played of Streen and Annie holding hands, kissing, smiling, laughing. He broke down in tears watching it. His lawyer argued, "Is this how a man behaves if he plotted her murder?" But prosecutors pushed back. Affection doesn't cancel deception. He still hid key information, including calls with Zola Tongo that night. Judge Jeanette Traverso ultimately threw out all the evidence regarding his sexuality, calling it inadmissible and prejudicial. Witnesses took the stand. Friends revealed Annie's private messages, sent just days before her death. Fighting a lot with Streen. Wish I had never got engaged. Crying has become my new hobby. He's a good guy, but I don't feel happy with him at all. Was she just homesick or scared? The prosecution's case depended almost entirely on one thing, Tongo's testimony, and that white envelope. CCTV shows Strean in the Cape Grace Hotel lobby, less than 24 hours after Annie died. He was smiling, holding a white envelope. He meets Zola Tongo. They move off camera. The envelope changes hands. Strean returns without it. Was it payment for murder, or just a generous tip? In another CCTV clip, Strean is seen talking to a hotel cleaner. According to Tongo, Strean was asking the cleaner to give them privacy, then supposedly whispered, "Has the job been done?" But under cross-examination, Tongo's story began to collapse. He changed dates, changed times, changed who said what and when. Phone records didn't match. Timelines didn't align. He contradicted himself over and over again. The judge said, "This is a web of lies, with no reliable or credible evidence." And before Anni Dewani ever took the stand, the case was dismissed. Not guilty, free to go.
A short while ago, Judge Jeanette Traverso ruled in favour of the defence's 174 application for a discharge of the charges against Anni Dewani. After almost 4 years, Mr. Dewani is now a free man. He's been acquitted, essentially, of the 5 charges against him relating to his wife's murder.
Case 6, James Fairweather. Colchester, UK. Roman walls, busy high streets, students and families. Open green parks where people cut through at night. Among the 150,000 residents is James, Jim Atfield, 33, a father of 5. 4 years earlier, he suffered a tragic accident when a car hit him. He spent 8 weeks in a coma. He woke with a brain injury, mobility issues, memory loss. He didn't even remember his own children. But by 2014, he was fighting back. Semi-supported housing, karaoke nights, small victories, and an emotional reunion with his kids planned with his ex, Cheryl, just days away. He'll never make that reunion. Friday, 28th of March, 2014. Jim has a few drinks at the River Lodge pub. CCTV shows him at the bar, alone, relaxed. He leaves before 1 a.m, taking the familiar cut-through Castle Park. A passerby finds him lying on the grass. "You alright, mate?" Jim slurs that he's fine, just sobering up. Cigarette in hand, the man calls back, "Be careful, yeah?" and wanders off. At 5:45 a.m, a resident stumbles on a horror scene. Jim is covered in blood, barely alive. Paramedics fight for 45 minutes. He's pronounced dead on arrival. An officer later says, at first he couldn't even tell Jim's hair or skin colour. There was only red.
There are 102 separate wounds on the body, which are believed to have been caused by a knife. This was a violent, frenzied attack on a vulnerable young man. It also asked people who live in the vicinity of Castle Park to check their gardens to see if any knife has been disregarded there. If anyone has any information, then I urge them to contact the police.
The autopsy revealed 102 stab wounds. His head, his hands and arms are shredded with defensive injuries. There's a bloody shoe print a metre away and more prints leading out of the park. The window of attack sits between 1 a.m. and 5:45 a.m. in a pitch-black park ringed by trees, a hunter's playground. Police pull CCTV. Nothing obvious. No one tailing Jim. No bar argument. No motive. No suspect. They release stills from the camera near a park entrance. 23 people seen passing between late evening and 4:20 a.m. and beg them all to come forward. A city goes on edge. Who butchers a stranger like this, and why? 3 months later, Colchester will get an answer it doesn't want. Tuesday, 17th of June, 2014, 10:30 a.m. Nahid Al-Manaya, 31, from Saudi Arabia, is a PhD student at the University of Essex, studying English. Due to graduate in August, she often walks the Salary Brook Trail, a tree-lined shortcut many students use. Her brother usually walks with her, but on Tuesdays he starts earlier. Today, she was alone. At 10:40 a.m, 2 locals searching for a missing cat find her on the path.
At 10:40 a.m, we received calls from members of the public to say that Nahid's body had been discovered very close to where we are now, here on the Salary Brook Trail. I'd ask anybody who was in the area of Hunswick Road at 10:20 a.m. or thereabouts to come forward and speak to us. We know from the CCTV footage there that there were people in that area in that time, and they are yet to come forwards to us.
The attack is savage. 16 stab wounds, major blows to the head. Like Jim, stab wounds to her eyes. She's small, barely 5 foot tall, overpowered in seconds. There's no theft, no sexual assault, no defensive path to safety, just brutality in the open, in daylight. Police lock down the area. The scenes echo Castle Park. Frenzied stabbing, eyes targeted, open public space, no weapon, minimal trace. They won't yet say the words, linked, but the parallels are undeniable. This time, there are witnesses. Around 10:56 a.m, people see a young man running from the area. The description follows. White male, late teens to mid-20s, dark mop-like hair, average build, a long-sleeved top with hood, dark trousers. A composite picture goes out. Police canvass estates, knock on nearly 300 doors, draft in officers from 6 forces. Crime Stoppers post a £20,000 reward. Fear spikes. Personal alarms are handed out by the thousand. The university mourns. The community whispers the words, serial killer. For months, the case grinds. 900 plus interviews, searches of the rivers and ravines. But the scenes are frustratingly clean, as if the attacker wore gloves, planned exits, and worked in blind spots. The randomness terrifies people. The method hints at practice. Some in the community point to hate crime. Nahid wore traditional Islamic clothing. Others insist it's opportunistic. Wrong place, wrong time, same offender. Police stay open-minded, but run the cases as parallel tracks, because if they're linked, Colchester has a repeat killer. Tuesday, the 26th of May, 2015, 10:30 a.m. Nearly a year since Nahid's murder, a dog walker, Michelle, crosses a small footbridge on the Salary Brook Trail, the exact route where Nahid died. A teenage boy stands alone, scanning, hands gloved, despite the heat. He locks eyes with her. He doesn't smile. He watches. Michelle turns back. She finds another woman on the trail. They return together. He's no longer on the bridge. He's crouched under a tree, peering. Something in her gut screams danger. She calls 999. I could be wrong, but his jacket looks like the one from the paper. And this is the same trail. PC Loomis arrives within minutes. The boy says he's out walking to clear his head. The officer notes the gloves, the thick jacket, asks if he has anything he shouldn't. The boy says yes. He has a large flip knife. They arrest him. His name? James Fairweather. 2 weeks after Nahid's killing, police had interviewed this boy and moved on. Now, he's about to talk, and what he says is shocking.
Some of the voices were talking to me. You need to make a sacrifice, or we're going to come and get you. You need to do it. And I saw him. It was laying on the grass, like that. It was like that. Just fast asleep, where he was drunk. Then he goes, he's the one. Do it. So I went up to him. Can I stand up? No. Yes. Went up to him. Stood over like that. Not helping that. So I stabbed him first there. And I've done it a few times. While I was doing that, my voices were laughing louder and louder.
In interview, James is flat, calm. He says he hears voices. He says the devil sent him out to make a sacrifice. He describes sneaking out of a window on 28th of March 2014 with a large knife and gloves, walking a mile to Castle Park and finding Jim asleep on the grass. He stands over him. He's the one. Do it. Do it. He stabs down into the torso again and again. He hears gurgling, runs, washes the blade, bags the clothes, and leaves them for collection. He tells them about Naheed. He turns her around on the path. He says she'd have been safe if she wasn't alone, knowing a killer was out there. On his phone, police find an obsession with serial killers. He's read cases of offenders who claim diminished responsibility. He's been researching outcomes. He talks about the time between the murders, violent fantasies, hardcore pornography, video games, daily urges to kill again. He says he only paused because the police presence was heavy, not because he wanted to stop. He says he feels a bit sad, but the victims committed sins, and what he did was right. He wanted to go on. He says if not caught, he'd have taken 15 more lives. Because of his age, James is initially anonymous, housed in a secure hospital for assessments. His team pushes diminished responsibility, psychosis, autism, isolation, paranoia. 4 psychiatrists agree he's on the autistic spectrum, but prosecution experts find no convincing evidence of psychosis. One psychiatrist calls the voices inconsistent and cinematic, sometimes inside, sometimes outside, details changing. The interview tapes show clear memory, planning and control. Gloves, dumped clothing, weapon handling, targeting eyes, returning to hunt in the same place. The judge is firm. Autism is not violence. Many people have it. It is not a pathway to sadism. The murders were sadistic and horrific. The eye targeting a signature. The jury returns unanimous guilty on 2 counts of murder in April 2016. He's then named to the public. He's sentenced to 2 life terms with a minimum of 27 years. If ever released, he'll be on licence for life. His mother weeps. Jim's mother says they can never forgive.
On March 29th, 2014, our lives were changed forever when my kind and brave son Jim was brutally killed. He had been through so much already, having fought hard to overcome the effects of brain damage suffered when he was struck by a car. He didn't deserve to die.
The community thanks Michelle, the dog walker whose instinct likely saved the next victim, possibly herself. Case 7, Brian Shaffer. So who was Brian? By all accounts, he was bright, goofy, and grounded. A second-year medical student at Ohio State, close with his father Randy, and dating his girlfriend Alexis. They had a trip booked to Miami for April the 3rd, 2 days after that night. Brian's mum had recently passed away. Friends say the loss hit him hard, but he was pushing forward. Music, medicine, and a beach getaway he kept talking about. Plane tickets waiting, an empty seat no one expects. On the night of March the 31st, 2006, Brian had drinks with his dad. Then later he met up with his friend Clint Florence near the campus. They went to various bars through the new South Campus Gateway development and ended up at Ugly Tuna Saloona, a noisy 2-level spot with a single public entrance up an escalator and a construction zone behind it. After midnight, they run into acquaintances. At some point, Clint's friend, Meredith Reed, gives them a lift back to the Gateway area, and all 3 head up to the Ugly Tuna. Inside, Brian is seen socialising, smiling. He steps outside to the landing around 1:55 a.m, chats with 2 women, waves goodbye, and turns back towards the bar. The camera on the escalator is aimed at the only public exit. If Brian left, it should have seen him. Later, it was closing time. Crowds funneled down the escalator, faces caught and logged. A later review shows everyone exiting, including Clint and Meredith. But no Brian. Police searched the bar, bathrooms, storage. The back service door? It opens into a dark construction site. Lots of debris, open drop-offs. Was that the path he took out, or a trap? If he left by the back, why didn't any camera catch him? If he didn't, then where did he go? The next day, Alexis calls and texts, but no reply. April 3rd arrives, flight day. Alexis waits at the airport gate, but no Brian. Family reports him missing. Search teams sweep campus, roofs, alleys, dumpsters, even the riverbanks. But nothing. Tips come in, but nothing is confirmed. So what about the CCTV? The escalator camera covers the public flow. The bar interior cameras show Brian re-entering, but not leaving. The rear service exit had no consumer camera pointed directly on it. Outside, the zone was under construction. So maybe two possibilities. One, he left and was somehow missed by the main camera, blocked by a crowd, an awkward angle. Maybe he wore someone's hat or jacket. Investigators tried to match every exit frame, but none fit Brian. Or two, he left via the back into the construction area, then either found a route to the street or suffered a misadventure where no camera looked. In a brand new development bristling with surveillance, the blind spot is exactly where a person could disappear. So maybe this is possible. However, if it was, no body was ever found. Surely, if he fell somewhere, he would have been found once construction started again. Police followed various lines of inquiry. Clint Florence, who was with Brian most of the night, and Meredith Reed both cooperated to varying degrees. Clint, on counsel's advice, refused a polygraph. Suspicious, yes, but not against the law. After the disappearance, voicemail rings were reported to Alexis's phone. The carrier later suggested this can happen without the phone being active. No verified actionable location ever emerged. Brian's dad, Randy, led searches until his accidental death in 2008. A message posted to his online obituary signed, "Love Brian, US Virgin Islands." It's traced to a public computer, but likely seen as a cruel hoax. There were various reports of sightings, from Ohio to the Midwest, to a photo of a man in Mexico years later. Each one was investigated, but none confirmed as Brian. So what are the theories that we have? 1. Construction misadventure. Brian leaves through the rear service exit, wanders off and falls into a poorly lit zone, sustains fatal injury, later obscured or removed during construction or cleanup. The arguments fall. This fits the camera gap, and that zone was hazardous at night. Arguments against. Extensive searches later turned up nothing definitive. If his remains were there, they're unlikely to have been perfectly erased. There would have been some DNA or some evidence. Theory 2. A river accident. He makes it out, becomes disorientated, and falls into the water. Arguments fall. He had been drinking quite late into the early morning. It was a cold night. He could have left without anyone seeing, and falling into the river is possible. Arguments against. Intensive water searches were done. Bodies tend to surface, though not always. Considering the amount of searching of that river, it's very unlikely that he fell in. Theory 3. Foul play outside the gateway. He leaves by the back route or missed by the cameras. Somehow he encounters the wrong person or people and is harmed elsewhere. Arguments fall. This explains the lack of in-bar evidence. Some of the areas surrounding where he went were known to have high criminal activity. If he was under the influence of alcohol and was on his own, it's very likely and possible that either a person or a group of people somehow got him into a car and drove off. Arguments against. He had no known enemies, and there's been no credible confessions or physical trail. Police looked at CCTV all around those areas, and there was no evidence of any car or people acting suspiciously that could be linked to Brian. No one has come forward, and known criminals in the area have been looked into. Theory 4, voluntary disappearance. Crushed by the grief of his mother, he stages an exit and disappears. Arguments 4, friends noted he'd been quite reflective and quiet in recent days. He loved music, and he always talked about change. Arguments against, he adored his girlfriend Alexis and his father. The Miami trip was only days away. Walking away without money, ID, or a plan is a high-risk act, and no verified sightings or contact in 19 plus years. It's just unlikely that he ran away. And Theory 5, an inside job. He never left the bar. Maybe he got into an altercation. Maybe he was hurt inside the bar, killed and hid, and then later smuggled out in a keg or a service elevator or a staff corridor, or he was harmed in a space the search missed. Arguments 4. This solves a no-exit paradox and explains why he's not been picked up on any CCTV. Arguments against. Police combed the premises. Forensic tests were taken, and there was no evidence. How could someone kill him inside the club and there be no witnesses? It just doesn't seem plausible. What makes no sense is the camera paradox. He definitely went in, but he was never seen coming out. The clean scene. There was no struggle, no blood trail, no wallet or phone or breadcrumb. No credible digital footprint since. In true crime, cameras usually solve the mystery, but here they are the mystery. So if we look at the short timeline, in the evening, on March the 31st, he had drinks with his dad. He meets Clint and goes to various bars. After midnight, Meredith drives him to the gateway. They go up to the Ugly Tuna. 1:55 a.m. Brian is caught on camera at the landing, talking. He turns and goes back inside. 2 a.m. The crowds exit. Cameras catch everyone except Brian. April the 3rd. He misses his flight to Miami. A missing person report escalates. Then weeks and months. Searches, CCTV scrub, and nothing. So what do we think really happened? We know that there was a stairwell and elevator that went down to the first floor service area near the Ugly Tuna's entrance. In the footage, we can see Brian was heading towards that direction. It's possible that he could have gone down that stairwell unnoticed. There are lots of various businesses on the ground floor that may have kept their back doors open. Brian easily could have walked through any of those doors and out onto the front. We know that not all the cameras were working on the ground floor. While it might be a perfect coincidence, it's still possible. Now, if we presume that Brian managed to get out of the building without being seen, what happened to him next? 2 things may have happened. 1, Brian, under the influence, may have stopped somewhere to sleep. Maybe he got into a dumpster. The actual search for Brian didn't start happening till after he missed his flight to Miami. So it's possible that those dumpsters were emptied and all evidence of Brian was destroyed. That doesn't explain the pings to his phone. Technology wasn't the best back then, so maybe there was a glitch in the system. The other possibility is that Brian was taken by some people, maybe put into a car, for the purposes of robbing him, but it went wrong, and then they got rid of his body. This is possible, but it relies on one or more people keeping that secret, and secrets are rarely always kept. Case 8. Lauren Giddings. Lauren Giddings was born on April the 18th, 1984, in Tacoma Park, Maryland, to parents Karen and Bill. She was the eldest of 3 sisters, and Sarah and Caitlin adored her. Lauren had always been the leader of the 3, the one her sisters looked up to. Growing up, she thrived in school and sports. Teachers remembered her as hard-working and driven. Friends described her as outgoing, funny, and loyal. Butterbean, her small dog, was her constant companion. Friends joked that you couldn't have a conversation with Lauren without Butterbean being mentioned at least once. In 2008, she moved to Macon, Georgia, enrolling at Mercer University School of Law. Lauren's goal was to become a public defender. She wanted to help people who couldn't afford lawyers, people society often forgot about. That sense of justice defined her character. Lauren moved into Barristers Hall, an apartment complex designed for law students, just across from Mercer's campus. The units were small, but safe and filled with fellow students. For Lauren, it was perfect. Close to classes, close to friends, and affordable. Lauren had been in a long-term relationship with attorney David Vandiver. David was significantly older than her, by more than a decade, but the two shared a deep bond, built on trust, encouragement, and love. They first met while Lauren was still in law school. David was already established in his career and admired Lauren's drive and her compassion for others. The couple spent weekends together when their schedules allowed. Despite the age gap, her family accepted David because it was clear how much he cared for Lauren. Lauren often confided in David about her fears, including her growing unease that someone might have been in her apartment. He reassured her, but also encouraged her to stay alert. June 2011 marked the culmination of years of sacrifice. Lauren graduated from Mercer University School of Law, walking across the stage in her cap and gown, her family beaming with pride in the audience. David was there, and so was Butterbean, her constant companion. Photos from that day capture Lauren smiling, surrounded by those who loved her the most. She wasn't just celebrating the end of school, she was celebrating the start of her future. But reality set back in quickly. The bar exam loomed, and Lauren dedicated herself to a serious study routine. Friends described her as laser-focused, rising early, studying late, and living off coffee and determination. Still, something unsettled her. Lauren told her sister Caitlin that she was convinced that someone had been inside her apartment while she was out. On June 25th, she sent an email to her friends, letting them know she'd be off the grid to study. It was considerate, thoughtful, classic Lauren. No one could have known that that would be the last time anyone ever heard from her. In the days after that email, Lauren went silent. At first, her friends and family thought nothing of it. She had warned them that she'd be off the radar. But by the 27th of June and the 28th, concern started to grow. Lauren was someone who always checked in. She hadn't even responded to Caitlin, who had just sent her photos from her honeymoon. That was unusual. By June the 29th, people were alarmed. Her car was still parked outside her apartment, untouched. Butterbean hadn't been walked or fed, which friends knew was completely unlike her. That day, her friend Ashley used a spare key to get into her apartment. Inside, everything looked almost too normal. Her purse, her phone, and her laptop were still there. She was supposed to be moving out the next day, so the place wasn't packed up yet. But it wasn't in disarray either. The only thing missing was Lauren. After spending more time searching and contacting people she knew, the next day the police were called. When they arrived, they began to look for signs of what might have happened. At first, there was no sign of a struggle. No broken windows, no forced entry, nothing disturbed. But when luminol was sprayed in the bathroom, investigators made a chilling discovery. The tub had once been full of blood. Police were now looking for Lauren's body. June 30th was hot. When police went outside, they noticed a strong smell coming from the dumpsters. This was a familiar smell, a smell that couldn't be forgotten. Officers followed the foul odour. Wrapped in plastic, they found the dismembered torso of a young woman. It was Lauren. The chief medical examiner confirmed that there were no signs of sexual assault, but could not confirm a cause of death. But they believed she had been killed and dismembered on June the 26th, most likely in her bathtub. Outside the apartment, The police had sectioned everything off and did not want to reveal to the public that they had found a body, as they suspected if the perpetrator lived in the complex, then they did not want to alert them, as they may run, harm themselves, or destroy evidence. Detectives quickly looked at those closest to her. All her friends gave statements. David, her boyfriend, was across the country at the time. An ex-boyfriend was also ruled out. But suspicion soon turned towards Barristers Hall itself. Every tenant allowed investigators into their apartments, except one. Lauren's neighbour, 25-year-old Stephen McDaniel. McDaniel was a fellow law student, living just feet from her front door. He had a reputation for being socially awkward, eccentric, even strange. He had been there in the initial searches for Lauren. He had even been asked to come to the station only a few hours before to talk to the police.
With me is her next door neighbor who lives in apartment 4. Can I get your last name?
McDaniel. Stephen McDaniel.
When was the last time you think you seen Lauren?
It was either last week or the week before that. I was coming back from bar prep and I was driving back and I saw her going out to run.
Is there anything that you could tell me today or add to your statement that could help me locate Lauren?
I can't think of anything. I mean, we looked around to see if there was a note or if there was anything, but there was just nothing that we could find to try and figure out where she was.
Police continued searching the complex, but made sure they had eyes on McDaniel. His behaviour became stranger by the minute. He kept hanging around, looking at what the police were doing, even talking to the media, who were now reporting from outside.
We don't know where she is. I mean, the only thing we can think is that maybe she went out running and someone snatched her. One of her friends had a key. We went inside and tried to see if there was anything amiss, but I mean, she had a door jamb that was sitting right by it, so there was no sign that anyone broke in. I mean, the door was locked when everyone got here. I mean, we just don't know where she is.
Whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
Had you heard it? Had you seen anything there? Had you seen anything there? I mean, we don't know if this is the same person. You know what I mean? Like, they took out a body there earlier. We don't know if it's the same person or not. So that's why we're trying to ask people if they know who lived there. Are you okay, sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
Up to this point, it had not been officially made public that the police had found human remains. McDaniel's reaction was noticeable. He sat blankly, staring. His demeanour had visibly changed. Hours later, he allowed police into his apartment to be searched. What they found was disturbing. Inside the apartment was a stockpile of packaged food and weapons. The police also found some condoms. When they showed them to McDaniel, he acted oddly, talking about how he could not get any dates. He then bizarrely admitted that he had broken into a neighbour's apartment and stole them from there. With this admission, police arrested him and took him to the station to be questioned. By the time he had begun to be questioned, he completely shut down and was no longer chatty. Instead, he became eerily monotone, still and unsettling in his responses.
All right. I just got to ask you a few more questions. Okay. You came down earlier tonight, me and you talked, all right. You don't have any weapons on you, do you?
No.
That's just you are. What's wrong? You know I'm Detective Patterson, right?
Yes.
Do you remember? Put your hands up here. You remember us talking? I need to know about this girl right here. You know her?
Yes.
Who is that?
Lauren Giddings.
Does she live next door to you?
Yes.
Okay. Look at me when you talk to me, son. Okay? Was you friends with her?
Yes.
I'm asking you for help. I need your help. Can you help me?
I don't know.
You don't know if you can help me?
Yes.
I need your help. Help me out. Tell me what to do.
As he was held, police continued to search his apartment. They found women's underwear, which was later tested and proven to be Lauren's. flash drives which would show indecent images of minors, and most damning of all, packaging for a hacksaw. Even more chilling, they learned McDaniel had access to a master key that could open every apartment in the complex. On his computer, they found horrible blogs he had written about women and torture. He had accessed Lauren's Facebook multiple times and was obsessed with her. They also found he had been secretly filming women, including Lauren, with a camera on a pole, peering through windows. Police grew more frustrated with Stephen's non-engagement, so they began to apply pressure.
You got your ass on that fucking news and stood out there and gave a media report that her mother saw. You sure stood out there and ran your mouth to the news media, but now you're gonna get out here and you don't fucking know. You're just a sorry piece of shit that don't give a fuck.
Why would you not be honest with me?
I am being honest.
Stephen, it just doesn't feel like it, buddy. You know, I get the sense that there's something weighing heavy on your heart right now. You're going to look at this right here, this little girl right here, and you're going to say you don't know? I know you know.
I don't know.
Yes, you know. What are you going to say tomorrow when I say we got your hair with the body? I believe that you're a good guy, you've been picked on, girls didn't show you the respect that you deserved, you did something stupid, and I believe you feel bad about it, and that's why you're all freaked out right now. We want you to tell it so that way people understand you're not a monster, things just, you got out of control. It's a sickness. Why'd you do it, Stephen?
I didn't do it.
Stephen, why are you going to keep telling that? You hurt that girl.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did, Stephen. I'm going to take this from me. You don't deserve to look at it. Just stay right here, okay?
Okay.
I appreciate all your cooperation tonight, okay?
Okay.
Throughout the interview, Stephen barely moved and never admitted to anything. CCTV showed he had gone to the shop to buy the hacksaw. Nearby, in a locked maintenance closet, police found the hacksaw itself, stained with what was eventually proven to be Lauren's blood. Bloody sheets were also found with Lauren's blood. It was now beyond doubt that Stephen McDaniel was her killer. The few people that knew McDaniel said he was weird and a loner. Not somebody they felt comfortable around due to his obsession with death and murder. He was arrogant and thought he was smarter than everyone around him. Near the end of his studies, he had no friends and had no idea what he would do. When he moved next door to Lauren, she felt sorry for him and had tried to befriend him. She even tried to introduce him to her mother when she spotted him walking alone, like he always did. Her mother, Karen, felt unsettled by him and did not like the idea of him living next door to Lauren. He always kept his windows and curtains closed, never letting in any light. Eventually, Lauren felt uncomfortable around him too, thinking he was out to get her. But little did she know, he was already obsessed with her and was stalking her. He had asked her to go out with him a few times, but she refused. On the 2nd of August, 2011, McDaniel was charged with the murder of Lauren Giddings, along with the additional child sex exploitation charges relating to his flash drives. McDaniel pled not guilty. The defense and the prosecution began to build their case.
The case building against Stephen McDaniel and the murder of his neighbor, Lauren Giddings, is getting stronger.
Today, a grand jury announced there's enough evidence to prepare for trial.
1 count of murder and 30 counts of sexual exploitation of children. Those are the heavy charges stacked against McDaniel, who's been in jail since July 1st on unrelated burglary charges. More than 20 grand jurors heard from the district attorney's office this morning before deciding there's enough evidence to let this case go to trial.
The prosecution recognised it was a largely circumstantial case, with nothing linking his DNA to her. Even the hacksaw had none of his DNA on it. They could not also prove the cause or time of death. But what they did have was overwhelming in terms of indicating he most likely did murder and dismember Lauren. More disturbing evidence was then presented during trial. On a memory card found in his possessions, there was a video showing Stephen stalking Lauren, filming through the window outside her apartment. Lauren had previously confided to friends that she felt she was being watched. This proves she was right. He had duct taped his camera to the end of a wooden pole and held it up to the window so he can film her room through her blinds. On the 7th of August 2011, Lauren was laid to rest in her hometown of Laurel, Maryland. Hundreds attended the service and spoke about how wonderful Lauren was. Although they could only bury her torso, her family commented that her spirit was all around. Stephen's defense team tried to position the ridiculous idea that he was being framed by the police and that they had entered his apartment many times without his knowledge. The prosecution was going for the death penalty, but the defense were trying to have that dropped. The prosecution eventually agreed to drop the child exploitation charges and offered him a plea deal. This meant Stephen would have to change his plea. Finally, in 2014, days before his trial, McDaniel pleaded guilty.
For nearly 3 years, 2 huge unanswered questions hung over the death of Lauren Giddings. What happened the night she died and what happened to the rest of her body, since only her torso was found after the murder. Today, Stephen McDaniel spelled out the answers to those questions in chilling detail. As part of his plea deal with prosecutors, McDaniel agreed to write an allocution, a document detailing what he did and how.
He admitted he had broken into Lauren's apartment in the early hours of June 26th, strangled her as she fought desperately for her life, and then dismembered her with a hacksaw. In his plea deal, he had to admit to the court what he did that day. This was what he said happened. At around 4:30 a.m., he unlocked the door using the master key. He was wearing all black with gloves and a mask. He stood watching her sleep, but she must have felt something wrong as she woke up abruptly. Before she could get out of bed, he leapt onto her and put his arms around her throat. They struggled and fell onto the floor. Lauren grabbed his mask and pulled it off, and when she realized it was him, she called his name and screamed at him to stop. She cried and tried to fight him off for almost 15 minutes as he was strangling her, before she stopped breathing. He then dragged her into the bathroom and put her into the tub. He left her there for the rest of the night and the next day, and on the evening of June 27th, he returned with some tools, including the hacksaw, and proceeded to dismember. He put parts of her into different bags, which he said he dumped in bins around the university campus. But her torso he put into the bin next to the apartment block, thinking it would be taken in a couple of days. He cut up his mask, gloves, and shirt and flushed them down the toilet. He said he did not sexually assault Lauren. She was wearing pink running shorts when she died, and he never removed them. These were found on her torso. The details he revealed were shocking. No one can understand how he could do that to Lauren, who had been nothing but kind to him. Stephen McDaniel was sentenced to life in prison, with parole possible in 2041. The only reason he did not get the death penalty was because Lauren herself did not support it when she was alive, so her family respected that decision. They said they hoped he lived a long life in the worst possible way in prison. Once he was sentenced, he wrote a letter claiming police intimidation and that he had an unfair trial. He asked for a new trial. 4 years later, he filed an appeal. But this time, he represented himself. He called over 10 people to be questioned, including his previous lawyer, who he was seeking damages against. Stephen wanted $50,000 from his lawyer for legal fees and $250,000 in punitive damages for his lawyer's alleged negligence.
graphic, specific, detailed confession, which we were shocked about in the jail. And then combine that with the searches on the internet, the fact that you had done searches about having sex with dead people, things of that nature. All of that combined to a heavy evidentiary problem in your case.
He also filed a motion to Judge Howard Sims, claiming he had shown him prejudice. The appeal was denied. In 2022, he filed another appeal, hoping for his conviction to be quashed. Again, he lost. Lauren's murder devastated her family, friends, and community, but those who loved her refused to let her legacy be defined by her death. Scholarships were established in her name. Pink Wednesdays were created to honour her favourite colour and her vibrant personality. An annual memorial run was organised to celebrate her life and raise awareness. Her sister Caitlin later named her daughter Lauren Magnolia, ensuring her big sister's name would carry on into the next generation. But for those closest to her, the grief has never faded. Lauren was so close to beginning the career she had worked tirelessly for, so close to helping people who needed her compassion and strength. She was stolen from them by someone who just lived a few steps away. Lauren's story is heartbreaking because of the brutality of her murder, but it's also heartbreaking because of the promise she held. A promise cut short by evil. We remember not just the victim of a crime, but a daughter, a sister, a friend, and a brilliant young woman who wanted nothing more than to make the world a fairer place. Lauren Giddings should be remembered not for the way it ended, but for the life she lived.